Hi guys. The only one on here today is Gloria. So, way cool to see you on here, Gloria. If you can hear me, okay, can you raise your hand or send me an emoticon so I can make sure that I have everything going properly? Awesome, awesome. Okay, cool deal. Well, even though you're the only one on here today, I'm going to truck along here just as though I had a whole class full of people because this time what I'm going to do is after the recording, load it to YouTube and then link it back out. Last time I had some problems with that, but that was the first time I was really doing it. So hopefully this time it'll get better. So, all right, so check this out. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go through some stuff in Excel. So before we even start in Excel, I kind of want to give you a preview of it so you can get a good idea of maybe the working space in Excel if you haven't used it before. If you look at the Excel software at the top, you still have tabs: home, insert, page layout, formulas, data, review. So all of these are still the same tabs like you would have for the structure in your Microsoft Office Word. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, Daisy joined us too. Very cool. All right, so if you go on your Home tab, you'll see there that you've got your groupings. So we've got the clipboard group, the font group, the alignment group, the numbers group. So you can see the different groups that are there. So this is still the same structure as Microsoft Office Word. So you won't have any problem making your way through Excel. Now, when you look at Excel, you see all these little squares here. They're actually called cells. So if you were to say, you know, click in this box, so it's not a box, it's a cell. And anytime you select a box to click it, that makes it your active cell. And if you look at that active cell, it's identified which cell that you're on. If you come over here and look in this little item here, that's called your name box. So for me, it tells me that I am currently in cell D3. So guess what? It also works the other way too. If I were to come up here and type A1 and hit enter, it would take me to cell A1. Okay, so so we have Gloria and Daisy in here. Welcome, guys. If you find that there's an issue with anything as we go along, please just write it in the chat or send me an emoticon or raise your hand, and I'll make sure that I try to troubleshoot what's going on. All right. So we've got here so far, we've gotten to the name box. And then I also want to mention to you this. If I'm in cell A1 and I'm just going to hit my down arrow, did you know that Excel is actually called the big grid? So the reason why it's called the big grid is it has millions of cells in it. We're going to use a very small amount of cells, and you can see that I still have my down arrow going. So you can see that like I'm on row 475, 500, okay? So there are a ton of rows here. So don't get yourself lost in a spreadsheet, but we're only going to use a very small portion of it. If I arrow right, you'll see that my columns are identified by letters, and those letters are going to go A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Just like the alphabet. And if I hold down my arrow, the letters will double themselves and go through the alphabet, and then ultimately they'll triple themselves. So what I want you guys to understand here is this is called the big grid, and Excel has a ton of cells in there. We use a very, very small piece of it. For example, right now I'm in cell TU545. So there are huge worksheets, big businesses use Excel. We're using it for just a small piece, okay? So I think you guys have got that down pat. I'm gonna click back in my name box and type A1, enter, and it will bring me back to cell A1. What I could have also done is, if I go back to cell TU545, if I wanted to, I could hit the Home tab, H-O-M-E, the Home tab, on my keyboard, and Control Home will bring me back to cell A1. Home will bring me back to the first column. Okay? So I did Control Home. That brings me back to cell A1. So the biggest part initially with Excel is just kind of learning how to make your way through it. So those aren't actually boxes. Those are called cells. And each cell is identified by a letter and a number. And before we jump into kind of going over some of the steps that are on your assignment, I want to take some time to teach you a few things about the other pieces of Excel that are important. So if I put my name into cell A1, you can see it sort of hangs out of cell A1. Anytime you type into a cell, you've got to seal it. That's my own technical terms. There's no one that says you have to seal a cell. So if you say that to someone else, they're like, what are you talking about? But so the deal is you've got to kind of seal that cell. To do that, you hit Tab, Enter, or click away. And what that means is it takes your insertion point out of there. Now, let's take a look here. If I click back into cell A1, if I look right here, this is called my formula bar. And on the formula bar right now, it has my full name listed up there, okay? But if I look at this document, if I look at the spreadsheet, it looks like Mundo is in cell B1, when in fact cell B1, if I look at the formula bar, is empty. So you always want to make sure that as you create something in Excel that you keep things within their cell. So one of the tricks that you can do is to increase a column width or something like that. And what I did was just a simple auto fit. So you get your mouse in between your columns and you click as fast as you say it, auto fit, double click. So double click and it will extend that out, and then you can increase your column width that way. Also, if you drag your mouse along, it gets a two-headed arrow and it will tell you what the point value is for pixels for your width, and you can identify that too. So if the instructions say increase your column width to 15, you could certainly drag that out until you got it to 15. Okay? All right. Any questions from anyone? Are we pretty cool so far? I don't see anything in the chat, so I think we're okay. Is anyone else able to type into the chat? Maybe I didn't enable the chat this time or something. Oh, good. Okay, good, good. Thank you so much, Daisy. Appreciate that. All right. So then the next thing that I want to share with you is this. Right now, my mouse is an arrow. So this arrow here, I can take this arrow and click into the cell. Now my mouse is, this is what I call Fat Daddy. Totally not another term that's technical or one that you'll see in books, but the reason why I call it this is a Fat Daddy will allow you to select cells. So this big white plus allows you to select things. So if I want to click into cell A1, I can select cell A1. If I want to select a range of cells, like from C1 through E10, I would use my big old Fat Daddy to do that, okay? So this big old white Fat Daddy allows you to select cells, all right? Now, here, if I would like to move something, my four-headed arrow allows me to move things. So I can get a four-headed arrow and I can move this text. And I prefer to have you guys move text this way as opposed to doing like a Control-C and a Control-V, because then a lot of times students will see that it's actually called a marquee, just like a movie marquee. And so it's called a marquee. I call it marching ants. And the reason why I call it marching ants is because if you're trying to get that off your screen, how do you get it off? Well, how do you get away from marching ants? You escape from them. So when you have the marquee on your screen and you're trying to get away from it, if you're trying to get away from marching ants, you just hit escape and it's gone. All right? So I usually, if you want to move text, I usually don't tell students to copy and paste and then go back and delete or whatever. Just use your four-headed arrow and move it somewhere. All right, so far we have seen a two-headed arrow up here for our columns. You can also get a two-headed arrow, which allows you to adjust your row height. We've seen a four-headed arrow, which allows us to move things. And then we've also seen this Fat Daddy, which allows us to click and select and get a range of cells. Okay, so the next thing that I want to share with you is something that's called the fill handle. What the fill handle does is it's basically, do you see in this particular cell right here in the bottom right hand corner, you've got a little box. Well, when you put your mouse over top of that box, that's what I call a skinny mini. It's really called the fill handle. So if you're trying to fill a formula, or if you're trying to fill text, for example, let's say that I have test 1. Okay, I typed it in and I sealed my cell by hitting enter. And then if I get this fill handle, the fill handle will remember patterns. So if I would like to fill this in, it will say test 2, test 3, test 4, and so on, because it identifies that I probably like to go with a pattern. So that fill handle can do a lot more for you. A lot of times people will bring me their Excel documents and say, well, you type this in Excel because you type so fast. It's not that I type so fast. It's just really that I know how to use the software. So let's say that I had the word Jan or January. Okay, so what commonly comes after January? February, right? Well, a lot of these patterns are already in lists that are within your software. So if I take my Fat Daddy down to a skinny mini on January, and I click and I drag, it's going to give me the months of the year, and it releases those months and tells me what it's placing within the cell as I drag, so I can decide where I'd like to stop. So Excel is really all about patterns. A lot of times I'll ask students, like, you know, what do you think about Excel? What do you know about Excel? And they tell me that Excel is boxes, which we know it sells. And then they'll tell me that Excel is about numbers, but Excel really isn't about numbers at all. Excel is about patterns. So and cell references, that's really what it uses. Okay, so that's why I started off telling you that this was cell A1 and how to identify that, because it's important that you know how to identify your cells, because that's how you're going to create when you're in the Excel software. So right now we're just learning about this fill handle, and that it will continue to fill things in based off of the prompts that you give it. Okay, now when it comes to numbers, numbers are a little bit different when you type a number in there, and the reason for that is because numbers can be calculated. So let me go into cell B1. I'm just going to type the number 1. And what I want you to pay close attention to is that my text is left aligned. My number is right aligned. Text is left aligned. Numbers are right aligned. Why does it do that? It does it because when the number gets placed into the software, it allows the software to say, hey, I'm a number and I can be calculated. This is text. Text can never be calculated. Can text be filled? Absolutely, but it can't be calculated. So if I were going to calculate tests, and I'm making my own spreadsheet, I would need to have a test identifier in one cell, and then the numbers would need to be in their own cell. The reason for that is because text can't be calculated. So all my numbers always have to be in a separate cell. So think about that when you're creating your own for your final exam. If you were to say test 1, I earned an 80, I can't calculate that, because there's text in there. Now, if I come up here and I align this number to the left using the left align button that's in the alignment grouping, does that make it not a number anymore? No, it's still a number. It just is when you initially type it in, it will, if I center it, will that change it? No. You can center it, you can left align it, you can right align it, but the initial input, when you place it in there, will always be aligned to the right because it's a number and it can be calculated. Okay, let me know if you have questions as we go along. Type it into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer it as we make our way through. Okay, so the next thing that I want to share with you guys is this. Let's say, let me take some of this stuff out of here. I'll delete it. Okay, now let's take a look at this. I already said if you type in January, you can fill in the months. So how many times have you seen or you've done this? 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, 5. Have you done that before in Excel? All right, well, there's no need to do that because you can use your fill handle, which is called your skinny mini, which remembers patterns, right? So if I come up here and I type 1, okay, so going based off of what I've told you so far, if I take my Fat Daddy to the skinny mini and I fill 1, oh, but what happened? Okay, so I'll tell you what happened. It's kind of like your 2-year-old. You know, most of us have or been around children, so think about your 2-year-old. When you have a 2-year-old and you tell them 1 and you pause a little bit too long, they're going to say 1, right? They do it, I promise. So Excel has said, look, you haven't told me where to go from here. So you gave me the number 2, and I'm going to give you the number 2. All right, well, that's not what I want. I want it to count for me. Okay, then I've got to be more specific. Think about your 2-year-old again. If I look at my 2-year-old and I say, you have until the count of 3, 1, 2, your kid's going to say 3, and so will Excel. So if I do 1, enter, 2, enter, then I have to take my fat daddy and select, because I'm telling it what pattern I want. I told you Excel has a lot about patterns. So I select 1 and 2, then I take my fill handle. It's going to give me the numbers I want. Now this is really pretty great, because now my 2-year-old is 12, but when he was learning multiplication tables, I would teach him to go into Excel, type 2 numbers in, select them, and then fill it in. And you can see that what it does is it will continue to repeat based off of patterns. And this is important to you a little bit later on as we go through creating the stuff in Excel. Okay? So I think I've gone over like some of the most important stuff with you guys up to this point. So I'm going to take a break from just the basics of this. So who has a question about the basics that we've gone over so far? Anyone? Okay. Well, in that case, what I have done is I've printed out all of the Excel lab that you guys will complete. And I've put a little dot by the things that I think are most important that students will have a tendency to have errors on. So let's check this out. And in the very first assignment that you guys complete, it's really a pretty simple assignment. It starts off by, you know, the students coming in here, typing work study. And then you type in spring 2018, and then you've got to type in the days of the week, right? But you're not going to actually type those. You'll fill those in. And then you have to type in some students' names. All right. Then you're going to put some data in there. So I'm not going to put the actual data that you guys have in there. I'm going to count by, oh, you know what, there's not really a whole lot. So let me just type it in here really quick. I'm just going to do, let's see here, 3, 6, 2, 5, all right, 2, 4, 1, 5. So what I'm doing is I'm just hitting enter after I type these in. 3, 5, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then 5, 2, 3, 5. Okay, that's usually what takes the most amount of time whenever you're in Excel is inputting your data. Okay, so quite honestly, we've pretty much done the first half of the first assignment right there. It's not too tough. It's not too bad. But then what it's going to ask you to do is to put the word total up here. So this will be our first formula. And then put the word total down here. Now, when Excel is going to calculate totals, it doesn't calculate numbers at all. So you're thinking like, what is that? That doesn't make sense. What do you mean Excel doesn't calculate numbers? No, Excel is going to calculate based off of your cell references. So I'm going to show you 3 or 4 different ways, well, maybe 3 different ways that you guys could create this formula here so that you get the totals here and here. Now, obviously, I'm going to start off with the toughest first, okay, just so that you guys can kind of get an idea. So if you're told that you've got to put a formula over here to calculate these numbers, first let me make sure that you know that Excel calculates cell references. So if I were to do this, I'm not adding 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus 5, okay? I'm actually adding cell B4 plus cell B5 plus cell B6 plus cell B7. Okay, so I'm not adding the numbers, I'm adding the cell references together. Okay, so what happens here is I want to make sure you understand that all formulas start with equals. all formulas start with equals. What the equals does is it tells Excel, hey, I'm starting a formula. Okay, I've got this. So I'm going to type in here equals. Now, I'm going to use the point and click method initially just so that you can get an idea of it. So point and click just simply means that I'm clicking into cell B4 because that's what I want added. Then I hit the plus sign. Then I click into B5, plus. Then I click into B6, plus. Then I click into cell B7. That's the formula right there. All formulas start with equals, so I'm going to say equals B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7. Now, anytime that you're done and you would like to complete a formula, simply hit enter. That will seal your cell, seal your formula, and then you're ready to continue on to the next one. Some students will actually add these numbers up and type the number in. That's actually harder than creating a formula, okay? Now, could I have, so I'm going to hit enter. There we go. My total is 16. Now, could I have actually typed these in? Sure. I could have said here that I would like to add cell C4 plus, this will take me forever, C5 plus C6 plus C7. And guess what? I'll make a mistake, okay? Because anytime I'm typing, I'm going to make an error. It's just a given, okay? So if you use the point and click method, you won't have a problem with that. Now, and you can also see that it color codes itself. I'm going to hit enter to seal my cell, so my total there is 12, all right? So check this out, though. If I take this formula that's here, and I come down here to my fill handle, my skinny mini, and I drag it across, it put my total in here, here, and here. Why and how? It remembers patterns. That's all there is to it. What do I mean it remembers patterns? Okay, when we first started, I do that if I clicked into a cell, for example, cell B3, and I come up here and look at my formula bar, it tells me what's in cell B3, right? We've already talked about that. So I'm going to click into cell B4, and this here, formula bar, tells me what's in cell B4. Let me come down here to cell B8. I visually see 16 in cell B8. But in my formula bar, it releases to me the formula, which is equals B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7. I can also use the range finder. And what the range finder will do is it will identify all of the things that are being calculated within that cell. So if I double click, there's my range finder. It's telling me B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7. All right, I'll escape out of that. So now what I want to share with you is this. If I come up here and I click on View, no, Formulas, that's where I want to go. Formulas, I can come over here to this little button here that says Show Formulas. All right, and in my Show Formulas, what it does is it will share with me the formulas that are in my sheet. So this is kind of like a behind the scenes look at what you've got going on, because if I click this back, I see the totals down here, right? But this here is going to show me the formulas. So if I look here at the formulas, it's just simply going off of a pattern, right? So this here said B4, and over here it moved to C4, here it moved to D4, here it moved to E4, here it moved to F4. It's just like going from Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, the same kind of concept. You went from B4, C4, D4, E4 to F4. So when you use that fill handle and you fill it in, so anytime that you've got a proper formula placed in there, you can fill it in. So up here, what I'm going to do is I will click and I'm going to say equals, because all formulas start with equals, and then I'm going to add Monday, and then cell C4 plus D4 plus E4 plus F4, and then hit enter. There's my formula. Select my formula, get my fill handle, and drag it down. So if I look at my formulas now, I'm going to share with you there's another way to check out your formulas. If you hold up your left hand, you got your thumb, you make the letter L, okay, right? So with your left hand, so then what you do is you take your thumb and hold down the control button, and you take your finger and tap the tilde button, and the tilde button is the button that is to the left of the number 1. It will also share this with you. Control tilde will give you your formulas. So now I can very quickly check out my formulas. Now you do see that whenever I go into this formula view, it widens my cells out. Don't change it. because if not, when you go back, they'll be extra wide. This is really just your viewing area. Never ever work in your formula area. You never want to work here, just view. So I can see here that I've got my formula, and it moves from one cell to the other, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8. Now, you see that when I fill a formula going vertical or going down, what does it change for me? It changes my row numbers. The B's all stayed the same because I'm staying in the same column. So if you fill something down, all of your columns stay the same, but your numbers change. If you don't want to remember all this, you don't have to. What do you really need to remember from this today? Well, you can need to remember how to create a formula, and you need to remember how to fill a formula. If you understand those two things, you don't really have to get deep into the other stuff, not in this class, okay? Now, I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to share with you the easiest way to complete this. So I showed you a way that was a little bit more difficult, right? And then, because you could have created a formula for every single row and every column, and that would have been silly, because I would have been creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 formulas. That takes way too long. When I could create one formula here, right, equals B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7, then fill it, right? So this is the other way. And then equals B4, let's see here, plus C4 plus D4 plus E4 plus F4, right? And then fill that. So that's the second way I wanted to show you. The first way is doing each one, which is crazy. I would never do that. All right, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to show you the easy way to do it. Now, have you ever, let me give you this explanation. So when you're working in Excel, this is my own personal explanation. Maybe it will help you understand. When you're working in Excel, you can either drive a stick shift car or an automatic, okay? So what we just did was basically driving a stick shift, which means we've got to move the gear every single time. We have to do all the work. So a minute ago, we did all the work. We clicked in here, we selected every cell, and we identified with every single cell. That would be the stick shift way of doing it, the manual way, the harder way, the more difficult way, okay? So there is the equivalent, in my opinion, of driving an automatic automobile. And I know there's some that's that mixed up thing. My car actually does that. I haven't figured it out yet, though, so we won't get into all that. But what I will get into is this. Check this out. There is this thing up here, and if you look on your formula bar to the left, there's a little FX button. That's insert functions. We're going to use that a lot. It makes things a lot easier for you. There's also a formulas tab at the top. I don't have the tendency to go there because I learned Excel old school style before that tab ever came out, and I always had to go here to this insert function. Also, most everything I need, I can find at this insert function button, and it saves me a click. So anytime I can save one click, I will. So instead of me coming to this formulas tab and pulling formulas from there, I will usually just stay on the home tab and click this FX button and choose the formulas that I want. All right, now also too, you'll find some of these over here on your home tab in your editing grouping. One in particular, it's not what I want, is the AutoSum. Okay, and there are multiple ways for you to use the AutoSum. I'm going to teach you the most the way that will okay, let me just share with you. I can click in this cell here and I can hit AutoSum. It's going to give me the formula and I hit enter. Done. I've got 16. That's the easiest way to do it, right? Although if you want to select a whole range of cells and get a formula, so you select all of them and then you can hit AutoSum. But check this out. It doesn't give you the totals over here. It only gave me the totals down here. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo. The way I teach students to use the AutoSum is select all of the numbers that you want calculated. Then select a blank spot for the answers. So I know my answers will go here and my answers will go here. This is also very helpful if you're doing grand totals when you're in Excel, because if you try to do grand totals and you already have totals there, it ends up double calculating into a completely different column, which could be frustrating to you. So if you always think, okay, I want all of these added, I want the answers to go there, you don't have to worry about it. So that's how I teach students to do it. Now click on your AutoSum and you're done. So why would you do First of all, that's quicker than 10 numbers. Second of all, it's a lot quicker than the manual way, but I want to teach you guys that way because you need to know how to create a formula. And so then I shared with you the really easy way to do this, right? Select all of your numbers, give it a blank spot for your answer, select AutoSum, and you're done. Now, if I look at these, I can tell the difference, and you can too, in the way that you've created your formulas. When you use the AutoSum, it will type in sum of a range of cells. So this formula is the sum of the range of cells B4 through B7. Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. It's just the difference between creating a formula automatically and creating a formula using the functions. Okay? So that's the difference between the two ways. So if your assignment tells you to create a formula manually or to create the formula on your own, you'll know that you'll need to type in equals and do it. And if not, you can use the function. All right, the last thing I'm going to share with you guys on this first assignment is that when it's going to ask you to create a chart. All right, so when you go to create a chart, I'm going to do it wrong first, right? Because I want you to see the difference. When you go to create a chart, if you're thinking, oh, yeah, I need to create a chart and I want to put all this data in there. So this is the wrong way to do it. I'm going to come up here and say, insert, and I want a column chart, and okay, I'll take this 3D column. This 3D column chart's wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. You got totals over here. You never ever complete a chart with your totals and your data, and the reason for that is because a chart is a visual picture of your information. So this is improper information because I'm trying to compare this against the totals, and it's not logical to do that. So I'll click delete. I'll click on it, I'll do delete, and now you're going to say, oh, I've got to be really cautious about what I select. So then you're going to do less, and you will not select your totals. You'll just get your numbers and say insert, and you'll insert your chart. And now look at this. I don't have any identifiers here. Who is this? Is this Monday? Is this Frank? Where are we? I don't know. So I'm going to click delete on that. I didn't select enough. So then what I'll do, check out this little blank cell right here. That's kind of like your home plate, your starting spot. You go to this little empty blank cell right there, you click there, and you start, but your directions will tell you the range of cells to add in there, and it will say, select the range of cells A3 through F7, and create your chart. So now I'll say insert, I'll choose my chart, I'll put my column chart in there, I'll type to add my title, click to add my title, right? And then I will move it where the instructions ask me to move it. When you click on your chart, it will release what you've included into your chart, which is kind of a cool trick. So if you click on a bar in your chart, a specific piece of data, which is actually called a series, if you click on that, it'll just select all the series. There's a lot of different pieces in here. This is my legend, so now I've selected my legend. I've selected my title. I've selected a series. If I want to move it, I've got to get it on just the edge and move it by the edge with my four arrow move handle, right? Okay? All right, cool. Questions about that? Questions about creating a formula, creating a function, and inserting a chart. So all that is within your very first assignment. Now, what I want to share with you guys now is check this out. This is the really cool part about Excel. Let's say that Frank made an error when he entered his data and he didn't work 3 hours on Monday. Maybe Frank worked 13 hours. So how do I change this? If I just click anywhere, I can type and it'll change it, right? But if I want to get into a cell to make a modification, I've got to double click. So I'll double click in here to get my insertion point. And maybe Frank worked 13 hours. Now watch this. When I hit enter, my total here is going to change, my total here is going to change, and my chart down here will change. Everything updates, okay? And that's the beauty of Excel. So it doesn't matter, you can't work 66 hours on Monday, Joe, but if you want to try, you know, it's going to change everything as you type it in, as you type a number in. Okay, so any questions about that? If not, I'm going to move along. I'm going to hit up a couple of other things that you guys are going to work on in some of your assignments. So hopefully that'll help you guys with the basics, with understanding parts of it, and with your very first assignment. Now, down here on the very bottom, you can see that it has a sheet tab. If I double click on that sheet tab, it turns gray, and I could call this work study. You'll be asked to do that occasionally to rename your sheet tab. Okay? All right, well, I'm going to plus them up right here. This is a new sheet tab. Do you see where my mouse is down here at the very bottom? I am not interested in opening up a new file because I'm not actually turning these assignments in. You guys are the ones turning them in, so whenever you go to your next assignment, obviously you'd start a new Excel spreadsheet. But for purposes today, I'm not going to close out of this. I'm just going to go to a new sheet tab, and I'm going to call this one Books, just by simply double clicking on it. Now, once you're done typing in your name of your sheet tab, click away. This way it will seal that cell. Okay? All right, so check this out. The next thing that you guys are going to do is you're going to do a little one that's called like books. You'll work on that, and you will go in here and format it. All right. Oh, we got an extra thing under chemistry there. All right. And then you're going to have some prices in here for your books, 120, 89, 0, and 190. Okay. Oh, wow. 120, 89, there we go, 0, and 190. All right, so check this out. In this next assignment, you're going to be working on more than just totals. All right. Now, if your instructions say to create a formula on your own, then you'll come in here and you'll start all formulas start with equals, right? Equals B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7, enter, done. Okay, so we're done with that part. We've already gone over that, so I'm not going to stick on that anymore. But then you're going to need to do average and number of classes. All right, so check this out. In the instance of cell A11, I'm going to go to a formatting thing for just a second. In cell A11, my text goes outside of that cell, okay, and I'd like to reel it back in. So one of the options that you have, come up here on your Home tab, Alignment Grouping, you've got this button here called Wrap Text. That'll wrap your text for you, okay, so now I've wrapped that text so it's wrapped within the cell so I can still see it. Now I'm going to work here for a few minutes on my average and my number of classes. These are functions. The functions are available for you. You can go about it two ways. You can say equals AVER, and it will say, because the equals lets it know it's about to do a formula, right? Equals means I'm going to start a formula. And once you start typing average, it says, oh, you probably want the average function. All right, so you can double click that, select the cells that you'd like into your average, finish it off with a parentheses on the end, and hit enter. Okay, most students don't like to do it that way because they're not that advanced yet. So I'm going to say that I'd like to have an average of these cells right here. So I'm going to click where I want my answer. I want my answer in cell B10. I'll go to my function, my insert function button, select it. Then I'll select average. That's what I'd like to do. Okay. This is a function arguments box. It could be moved anywhere on your screen. So I've got this function arguments box. It says, do I want B4 through B9? No. B8 is a total. I can't average a total, and B9 is blank. I don't need to delete that. Just simply come over here and click and select. All right. And that will select my range of cells. Right here, it gives me an idea. Your total is going to be 99.75. Cool deal. And I'm done. I'm done. Check out my formula. You can see what I've got, right? Now I need to do number of classes, and that's another function. So that's going to be using the count formula. So I'm going to click where I want my answer, come back up here to my FX button. I'm going to choose that I would like to count. Okay. Make sure I can move my box and see everything, select my range of cells, and say, okay, and I'm done. Other than that, you're going to have some formatting in this particular assignment where you'll do like an underline. As a matter of fact, if I were to come here and try to print this and look at it, those cells, they don't show up. All right? They don't show up. Now, they would if I told them to, but I didn't tell them to. But generally what you do is you're going to create a border. So if I were to come in here and select these cells and go to this button here, Home tab, Font grouping, Borders button, select the down arrow and say I want all borders. Okay, and this one it doesn't have you use all borders, but I'm just giving you an example. Let's say that it wants you to do a double bottom border. Okay, double bottom border. All right, so there we've got a double bottom border. All right, what if you were told to do a single bottom border? That's easy too. Select your down arrow or a thick bottom border. Okay, done. Okay, so that's your borders. You'll learn that too. Okay, and that's really a lot of what you guys will learn in your first 2 assignments. So I'm going to stop recording this so that the file doesn't get too large, because I'd like to try to upload this to YouTube and send you guys out a link. So let me come over here